My father's voice cracked through the dining room like a whip. You and that kid of yours are nothing but leeches draining this family dry. He spat the words across my own dinner table, the one I built, furnished, and paid for. My mother didn't flinch. She just folded her napkin with a smile that made my stomach twist, like she'd been waiting her whole life for him to finally say it aloud. The sick part? They were eating roast chicken from my kitchen, drinking wine from my cabinets, sitting in a home my overtime hours paid for, and still acting like they owned the place. But I didn't cry. I didn't break. I simply looked at them, calm and steady, and said, "You have 24 hours to leave my house." Silence. Heavy, shocked, electric. My father's jaw locked. My mother's smile crumpled. My brother, Theo, the golden child who never paid a bill in his life, froze with his phone halfway to his mouth. For once, he had nothing to record, nothing to joke about. They thought this outburst came out of nowhere. They thought this was emotion. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to notice, was that I had been preparing for this moment long before tonight, long before this dinner, long before they ever stepped foot into my doorway with their entitled demands. This was not a meltdown. This was an eviction. Because the truth was simple. My family had fed off me for years, my income, my energy, my silence. They had mistaken my loyalty for weakness and my stability for surrender. Tonight, Rowan Hale stopped being their safety net. And for the first time in my life, I watched them realize it, from the outside. The Hales were the kind of family people envied. We were the Christmas card clan, the kind with coordinated sweaters, perfect smiles, and matching mugs of hot cocoa. My mother orchestrated the photos like a director on a movie set, insisting on retakes if even a single strand of hair was out of place. My father shook hands at neighborhood barbecues like he was running for office. And my brother, Theo, with his charming grin and endless big ideas, was the star attraction. To everyone else, we looked wholesome, functional, close. But behind the front door, the truth was messier than the staged photos ever showed. Growing up, I learned early that our family ran on a two-tiered system. Theo was the chosen one, the golden child. The sun gravitated around him, and somehow we all pretended that was normal. Every achievement of his, real or imagined, was celebrated like a national holiday. He landed an unpaid internship. My mother baked a cake. He dropped out of college to pursue entrepreneurship. My father toasted him with bourbon. Meanwhile, I was the steady one, the quiet one, the one expected to swallow inconvenience and give until my ribs cracked. No cakes, no toasts, just responsibility piled on me like laundry nobody else wanted to fold. When we were kids, Theo could crash a bike through the garage door, laugh while doing it, and Dad would shrug it off. Boys will be boys. I came home with a 98 on a math test, and Mom gently warned, "Don't push yourself too hard, sweetheart. Not everyone needs to be exceptional. Not everyone." She meant me. Even then, the rules were clear. Theo's flaws were quirks. My strengths were chores. His mistakes were forgiven. My accomplishments were invisible. As we grew older, the pattern calcified. Theo bounced from one world-changing idea to the next, an app to track dog moods, a drone delivery bakery concept, a cryptocurrency for coffee shops. Every failure was followed by a family meeting where my parents urged us to support Theo's genius, which was code for, "Rowan, open your wallet." I worked my way through college. Theo burned through his trust fund into semesters and still graduated debt-free. I bought a modest house in West Austin. Theo bounced between friends' couches, but my parents still bragged about his startups. I raised my son, Asher, alone. Theo couldn't keep a plant alive for a week, yet Mom insisted. He had leadership energy, and the world believed it because my parents curated the perfect illusion. People saw the polished Christmas cards, the smiles, the matching outfits. Nobody saw the emotional ledgers behind them. Nobody saw how often I bailed them out, covered Theo's debts, paid their overdue mortgage, or fixed messes they created. Nobody saw how my parents used me as the family's unofficial safety net, but I did. I saw everything, and deep down, even though I never said it aloud, I knew the truth. Theo was the child they adored. I was the child they depended on, and those roles were never meant to be equal. While the world praised my brother's potential, it was my paycheck that kept this family from collapsing years ago. Not that anyone ever said thank you. Gratitude wasn't a language the Hales spoke, not to me. Anyway. By 25, I was already the one smoothing over the financial cracks my family tried so hard to hide. When Dad's truck broke down for the fourth time in a year, Guess who wrote the check? When Theo needed just a little seed money to impress an angel investor, it was my savings that vanished. When Mom forgot conveniently to pay their property taxes, I covered the penalty just so their house wouldn't end up on an auction list. To the outside world, Theo was the visionary. Inside our family, I was the financial backbone they stood on without ever looking down. It didn't stop with them. I had Asher, my son, my anchor, my reason for everything. I became a mother at 22, and from the second he wrapped his tiny fingers around mine, I promised myself he would never grow up feeling invisible the way I had. I worked long nights in software development, coding until my eyes blurred, because stability wasn't optional, it was survival. There were months when I functioned on caffeine, sheer willpower, and the sight of Asher asleep on the living room couch waiting for me to come home. Every bill got paid, every lunchbox stayed full, every science fair project had supplies he picked himself, not leftovers I scraped together. And still, my parents found ways to turn my success into shame. You're too obsessed with work. You think you're better than us because you make good money. Asher is growing up spoiled. Maybe slow down on the fancy toys. The fancy toys they meant? A $12 model rocket from Walmart. They never saw how hard I fought for every inch of stability. They saw the results, but not the sacrifice. The nights I cried in the shower from exhaustion. The promotions I earned through grit, not luck. The rent I paid for their emergencies instead of taking Asher on just one real vacation. And the twisted part, the more I provided, the more they expected. The more they expected, the less they respected. I had become the family's unofficial ATM, one they felt entitled to withdraw from, criticize, and resent all at once. But even an ATM shuts down when it runs out of cash. And the truth was, I wasn't just running out of money, I was running out of patience. The breaking point didn't arrive in flames. It came the way most storms do, quiet at first, almost unnoticed until it was already tearing through everything I had built. It was a Tuesday evening when the call came. I had just shut down my laptop after a brutal day of back-to-back meetings, my brain fried, my shoulders tight. Asher was at the kitchen table, elbows deep in a solar system project, humming softly like he always did when he was focused. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I hesitated. Calls from her never meant good news. They always meant obligation, the kind that required my wallet. But I answered. Her breath trembled on the line, but I knew the rhythm. My mother had a script she clung to whenever she wanted something. Rowan, she whispered, your father. We just got the results. His heart may give out. We need surgery soon. And the house. Her voice cracked perfectly on cue. We're behind, badly. 300,000. I pressed my fingers to the cold surface of the window, staring at the twinkling Austin skyline. 300,000. Of course, I wanted to believe her. I really did. But I'd danced this dance too many times. Big numbers, vague explanations, frantic emotion masking a total lack of paperwork. Every time the story changed, but the ending never did. Help us. Save us. You owe us. I swallowed hard. Bring everyone to dinner tomorrow, I said. You, Dad, and Theo. We're not doing this over the phone. The silence that followed told me everything. She hadn't expected a face-to-face conversation. She wanted a quiet deposit, not confrontation. Eventually, she murmured agreement and hung up. That night, after putting Asher to bed, I sat at the dining table with a cup of cold tea and my thoughts spinning like a cracked record. A familiar guilt seeped in, the same kind that had shaped my entire childhood. Family first. That phrase had controlled me for decades. It was the leash. My parents used to tug me back into place every time I dared step outside their narrative, but for the first time, something felt different. The leash didn't tighten. It snapped. I called my best friend, Tessa. She listened without interrupting, just like she had through every other crisis my family manufactured. They're lying, she finally said, or exaggerating, or hiding the truth. Rowan, you need to protect yourself this time. Record the conversation. Document everything. Don't let them twist your words again. Her advice settled into my bones like truth I'd been avoiding. This wasn't a crisis. It was bait, a setup disguised as an emergency, a manipulation wrapped in the familiar shawl of family first. But this time, I wasn't stepping into their trap. I was preparing for the fallout. The next evening, the house felt too still, like it already knew something was coming. I set the table with deliberate precision. 4 plates, 4 glasses, folded napkins. Not because I cared about presentation, But because control was the only armor I had left, Asher sat on the couch finishing homework, quiet and observant in the way children become when they grow up around unpredictable adults. When Harper, my neighbor and emergency backup, knocked, he grabbed his backpack without complaint. "Grown-up night?" he asked. "Exactly," I said, brushing his hair back. "I'll get you when it's over." He nodded, trusting me in a way I wished I trusted myself. Minutes after he left, the knock came. My mother walked in first, carrying barbecue like she was arriving at a picnic instead of a financial intervention. Dad followed, stiff and irritable, shoulders pulled back in manufactured authority. Theo entered last, scrolling on his phone, smirking like he was above all of this. They sat. Small talk dripped across the table, false nostalgia, meaningless chatter, attempts to soften me, but I wasn't soft anymore. "So," I said, interrupting my mother mid-sentence, "let's see the hospital documents, billing statements, any paperwork about the house." The shift was immediate. Mom's smile thinned. Dad's eyes flicked sideways. Theo cleared his throat, stalling. "There isn't paperwork," my mother finally admitted, voice trembling in that practiced, manipulative way. "You'll just have to trust us." There it was, the word they relied on like a weapon. Trust. Trust us while we drain your savings. Trust us while we lie. Trust us while we pretend you're cruel for asking questions. Dad leaned forward, jaw clenched. "You make good money, Rowan. $350 a year. Are you really going to watch your own family drown?" Theo chimed in, spreading his arms dramatically. "We all know you can afford it. You just like playing the victim." My chest tightened, but my voice stayed calm. "This is the last conversation we're having without proof. No documents, no money." My mother shook her head as if I were a stubborn child. "You've become cold. That job of yours changed you." "No," I said softly. "You changed me." Dad slammed his hand on the table, rattling the silverware. "We're asking for help." I stared at the three of them, united in entitlement, allergic to accountability, and realized something. They hadn't come to ask. They'd come to collect, like they were entitled to my life. And that was the moment dinner ended. Not with dessert, but with truth. The night after the disastrous dinner, the house felt hollow, an echo chamber of every accusation they'd thrown at me. I washed dishes in silence, trying to steady the shaking in my hands. That should have been the end of it, of course. It was end single quotes T. At 7:14 a.m. My phone pinged with a notification, then another, and another. By the time I unlocked the screen, the fire had already begun. My mother had posted a TikTok. Her face filled the frame, perfectly lit, perfectly tragic. Tears streamed down her cheeks like she'd practiced crying into a mirror. "I don't know what I did wrong," she sobbed to her 30,000 followers. "My daughter Rowan kicked her own family out. We're losing everything. We just needed help. Please pray for us." Underneath, she'd added hashtags like wounds, ungrateful daughter, #family betrayal, #victim of success. A slideshow followed photos of me holding Asher, pictures of the house, snapshots stolen from holidays, all without context, all arranged to make me look like a monster protecting wealth instead of protecting my son. Within an hour, the video was at 80,000 views. By lunch, 500,000. Strangers dissected my life in the comments. "She must be heartless. Poor parents. That little boy deserves better. That little boy, Asher." My stomach twisted. Then came Theo's video, him pacing in a parking lot, eyes blazing with fox righteousness. "My sister ruined our family," he growled into the camera. "I've worked my whole life for my dream, and she destroyed it out of jealousy. She's toxic. She's cold. She only cares about money." His followers ate it up like gospel. Then Dad joined in with a Facebook post about modern children abandoning their elders and the decay of family values. They weren't just attacking my reputation, they were setting fire to my name. At work, co-workers whispered. In group chats, screenshots circulated. My manager pulled me aside with a polite, concerned frown. "Is everything okay at home?" My family wasn't asking for help anymore. They were building a public narrative, a weapon sharpened with lies and tears, and their goal was simple: destroy me before I could defend myself. The smear campaign spread for days, viral, relentless, vicious. But while strangers judged me online, the real turning point came from a quiet phone call the next afternoon. It was Marin, my real estate attorney. Her voice was steady, clinical, almost gentle, like she already knew I needed something solid to hold on to. "Rowan," she said, I reviewed the refinance documents on your parents' house. There's something you need to see. I sat down, heart pounding. Tell me. There's a clause, she said. A serious one. 2 years ago, your parents refinanced through a private lender. If they default, she paused, then finished. The bank can sell to any qualified buyer without their consent. I blinked. They're in default? For 6 months. 6 months. 6 months of them calling me heartless and selfish, while the house they claimed I was abandoning them in wasn't even theirs anymore. My throat tightened. Marin continued. If you want to purchase the property directly, you legally can. And frankly, you should. It protects you and your son, my son, Asher. I exhaled slowly, a clarity settling into place like a final puzzle piece snapping in. Start the process, I said. Immediately. Within 48 hours, the sale was underway clean, fast, airtight. But that wasn't the only discovery. Marin called again the next morning, her voice tinged with urgency. We found something else, she said. In your grandfather's estate records. I froze. My grandfather. The only person who ever looked me in the eye and saw me not the family scapegoat, not the financial workhorse, just Rowan. What is it? A letter, she said. And early drafts of the will. Papers rustled through the receiver. Your grandfather wrote a specific allocation for you. A college fund, a living stipend, an inheritance. It was all meant for you alone. My breath hitched. She kept reading. This money is for Rowan's education and future. No one else's dream. No one else's debts. My eyes stung. Then came the blow. That fund was withdrawn, Marin said softly. Years ago. And based on the signatures. She hesitated. They appear forged. Forged. Just like everything else they had taken from me. My childhood. My savings. My silence. My parents hadn't just drained me financially, they had stolen from the one person who believed in me. And now, their house, bought with lies, was legally about to become mine. My inheritance, once erased, was resurfacing as evidence. They wanted a public war, but what they didn't realize was that I now had the law, the truth, and my grandfather's words on my side. And the reckoning was no longer emotional, it was legal. Airports are oddly perfect places for endings to bright. Too loud, too busy for lies to hide in the corners. When Marin told me my parents and Theo were flying back into Austin that afternoon, something inside me clicked into place. Not anger, not revenge, readiness. For once, I wasn't stepping into their chaos, I was stepping into my power. Marin met me just outside the arrivals gate, a thin folder tucked under her arm, filled with eviction orders, property transfer confirmations, and a cease and desist for the social media defamation. The paperwork felt heavier than its weight, like armor forged from every wound they ever left in me. They land in 9 minutes, Marin said. Calm as a surgeon, my pulse thudded, but my stance stayed firm. The terminal buzzed with travelers, rolling suitcases, and overhead announcements. But when I saw them, Theo leading the way, my mother clutching a neck pillow like a worn prop, my father scanning the crowd, everything sharpened. They spotted me. My mother actually smiled, stepping forward like we were about to embrace. Rowan? Thank God, Marin cut through the moment, her voice crisp and unyielding. Consider yourselves served. She placed 3 envelopes into their hands before they could react. Confusion, then realization, then panic. Theo tore open his first, and the blood drained from his face as he read. Notice of eviction. Notice of property acquisition. Order to cease harassment. You bought the house? He sputtered, voice rising. Yes, I said evenly. It's legally mine now. You have 72 hours to vacate. The terminal air shifted, travelers slowing, watching, pretending not to listen but absolutely listening. My mother's face crumpled. Rowan, sweetheart, you can't do this. We're your family. No, I said, pulling out the letter from my grandfather, the one they thought they buried in the attic. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't threaten your child. Theo stepped forward, fury twisting his features. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. Without us, you'd be nothing. I leaned in just enough for only him to hear. I became everything in spite of you. Security drifted closer, not intervening, just watching. My father's voice cracked from behind them. Rowan, please. I shook my head. You forfeited your say the moment you weaponized my name and my son's, for the first time in my life. They were the ones standing small, and I was the one walking away, whole. The moment the airport showdown hit social media, It detonated like a controlled explosion, loud, contained, and impossible to ignore. Someone had recorded the confrontation, and within hours, the video spread across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook like a brushfire in dry grass. The caption read, "Woman serves eviction papers to her own family at the airport." Hashtag family drama Texastia. Millions watched, millions commented. My family couldn't outrun the truth anymore. Theo fell first. They filmed a furious response video from what looked like an airport restroom, fluorescent lighting, echoing acoustics, anger vibrating through the screen. "My sister is a liar," he snarled. "She stole the house. She planned this. She's been sabotaging me for years." But the comments, they didn't land the way he expected. Then why was the house in her name? Why'd she have legal documents ready? Why didn't you pay back her college fund, bro? His followers peeled away fast. The internet senses weakness like blood in the water, and Theo was bleeding ego. Within a day, investors he'd been courting unfollowed him. His startup page went dark. Someone dug up old court records showing bounced checks and failed LLCs. Every lie he told now echoed back at him with receipts. Mom's persona cracked. Next, she tried to pivot. She posted a teary apology video, this time framed with soft lighting and gospel music. "I didn't mean for things to get this far," she cried. "I just wanted my daughter back. I was desperate." But the internet had seen her manipulate before. Under her video, people commented, "You exploited your daughter emotionally. Why was the inheritance spent? Where's the accountability?" Then someone uploaded a stitch showing footage from old posts, mom bragging about renovations, vacations, a mysterious blessing that funded it all. She had exposed herself. Her following shrank overnight. Dad went silent. No videos, no posts, no statements. But silence is loud, especially when screenshots surfaced of his messages demanding money. Especially when former co-workers spoke anonymously about his pride, his temper, his financial irresponsibility. His attempt to stay neutral only proved he had something to hide. Relatives jumped in, then back to top first. The cousins and aunts tried to defend them. "She's taking things too far." They were struggling. Family is sacred. But then the legal documents leaked. Not by me, by the court. Public record. The forged signatures. The refinance in default. The misuse of my grandfather's will. The debt trail leading straight to Theo. Suddenly, the relatives changed tone. Maybe Rowan was right to separate herself. I had no idea it was this bad. They always favored Theo. We thought it was harmless. And just like that, the tide turned. The family imploded from the inside. Mom blamed Dad. Dad blamed Theo. Theo blamed the world. Their group chat, once a place to coordinate holiday dinners, became a battlefield of accusations, screenshots, and desperate pleas. Someone leaked the messages. The implosion became public, and the internet watched the collapse of their carefully curated family image in real time. For years, they'd made me the villain. Now in the court of public opinion and actual court, they were the ones exposed, and I didn't lift a finger. All I did was stop protecting their version of the story. In the weeks after the public collapse of my family, the noise around us gradually softened. The videos stopped trending. The comments slowed. The internet shifted its attention to the next wildfire. But inside my home, something quieter, something far more important began to take root. Healing, not dramatic, not cinematic, just steady everyday repair. Asher felt the tension long before he had words for it. For months, he'd tiptoe around emotional landmines, unsure when the next storm would hit. But now, with my parents and Theo formally out of our lives, he finally began to breathe easier. One afternoon, I found him in the backyard, kneeling beside the young pecan tree we planted weeks earlier. He brushed soil away from the base, inspecting tiny new leaves with the seriousness of a scientist. "It's growing," he said without looking up. "So are we," I replied softly. He glanced over, his expression thoughtful in the way kids his age rarely manage. "Are you less sad now?" he asked. The honesty in that question cracked something inside me. I knelt beside him. "I'm not sad the way I was," I said. "I'm lighter, safer, and that means you're safer too." He nodded, seemingly satisfied, then went back to brushing dirt from the roots like he was tending a fragile truth. At home, our routines shifted. Dinners were calmer. Homework happened without tension, humming in the walls. We played music again, loud, messy, joyful. On weekends, we biked around the neighborhood. He talked about rockets. I talked about new projects at work. We started becoming our own version of a family, one built on choice, not obligation. For years, my energy had been siphoned into people who only took. Now, all of it poured into the one person who mattered, my son, my future, my peace. As the dust settled, I began noticing something unexpected. Without the weight of my parents' demands and Theo's chaos, there was room inside me, room to think, to breathe, to imagine what life could look like beyond survival. It started small. I reorganized my office. I lit candles in the evening just because the scent calmed me. I signed up for a weekend workshop about advocacy and financial literacy for single mothers, something I'd always cared about but never had time for. Then the messages came. Hundreds of them from strangers who'd watched the airport video, read the court filings, or found the article I eventually agreed to publish. Women who had been scapegoated, men who had been financially drained by their own parents, adults who'd spent their whole lives feeling like shadows in families that never saw them. They didn't want gossip. They wanted guidance, a map. Out of the maze I had finally escaped. For the first time, I felt something blooming in my chest that wasn't fear or anger, purpose. Tessa noticed it before I did. You could turn what you survived into something that saves people, she told me one night as we sat on the porch, Asher inside working on a school project, a podcast, a blog, workshops. Rowan, you have a voice now. People listen. Her words didn't intimidate me. They rooted in me. Because she was right, I wasn't alone anymore. And more importantly, I didn't want anyone else to feel alone the way I once had. Slowly, my definition of family shifted. Family became Tessa dropping off soup on long workdays. It became neighbors who offered to watch Asher when meetings ran late. It became messages from women saying, "Your story gave me the courage to say no." Family wasn't the people who shared my blood. It was the people who shared my healing. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. When I look back now, the greatest shift wasn't the eviction, the legal win, or even the public reckoning. It was the moment I realized this truth. You cannot save people who are committed to sinking you. For years, I mistook endurance for love. I thought being a good daughter meant absorbing every blow, paying every debt, sacrificing every dream. I thought loyalty required silence, even when that silence was killing me slowly. But real love doesn't demand you're drowning. Real family, chosen or blood, doesn't weaponize guilt, or your past, or your success. It doesn't ask your child to carry the consequences of someone else's mistakes. The core theme of everything that happened is simple. Boundaries aren't walls. They are doors, doors you build so the right people can come in and the wrong ones can stay out. My parents and Theo didn't implode because I finally stood up. They imploded because standing up exposed how fragile their control had always been. And Asher, he taught me what strength actually looks like. Not staying for more harm, but leaving so something better can grow. When I planted that pecan tree with him, its roots small and trembling in the soil, I realized healing isn't loud. It's steady, it's earned, and it begins the moment you stop apologizing for protecting your own peace. If you're listening to this and any part of my story aches in a way you can't quite name, hear me clearly. Choosing yourself is not betrayal. Choosing peace is not cruelty. Choosing to break a cycle is an act of love for you and for the people who depend on you. You deserve safety. You deserve respect. You deserve to build a life that doesn't require you to shrink to fit inside someone else's comfort. And if this story reached you, tell me where you're listening from. Your voice matters here, and your healing has a place too.